Hi, in this video I'm actually going to do the analysis of a chili puree. So I've got some chili puree in front of me now, and I've also got the FoodSense Generation 4 technology with me, and we're going to measure the hotness of this particular puree. So before I do that, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction as to what's happened previously. So I've purchased this chili puree. I'm doing it because I think chili puree is actually also a good let's say surrogate for also thinking about testing whole chilies, because if you're going to test whole chilies or chili puree, you first of all need to turn those whole chilies into I don't want to say a puree, but you need to chop them up, and I'll describe why that is the case in a minute. As it is, I've purchased this chili puree. It's very hard to really kind of get any sense of the hotness of this prior to testing, because it describes itself as kind of red chili puree, 93%. It's got this acetic acid and the citric acid and some then crushed dried chilies, rapeseed oil, salt, stabilizers, xanthan gum. But obviously there's no kind of what type of chili they actually are in there other than sort of generic red chili. So anyway, we'll measure it and find out is the quick answer. Now the first thing that I've done is I've actually prepared a sample previously. So, and I would like to just change screens just for a second, because I think it's important to realize that if you're going to be testing whole chilies, it does help if you can get the kind of chilies into a kind of paste like this, or sort of really highly blended, because when you highly blend like this, then it's easier to kind of for us to do the extraction. Now, I'll say it in this video in a minute, but what I've done in order to prepare this particular sample is I had a quick, taste, and I realized it was fairly mild. So I've done what is called a 1 in 10 dilution. So I weighed out 0.1 grams of the chili. As it was, I weighed it at 0.105 grams, and I'll just change screens actually just to make that point. But 0.105 will only give me a 5% error. So I was meant to weigh out 0.1 grams. As it is, I weighed out 0.105 grams, but it'll give me a 5% error, but I can essentially, cope with it for the case of this particular demo. Now, the next thing I did is I actually dissolved it in 0.9 milliliters of buffer. So I have some chili buffer here now. I'll also change screens just slightly, so you can actually see that. So this is the chili buffer, and I've weighed out something like 0.9 grams of that chili buffer, or 0.9 milliliters of that chili buffer. Now what I've done is I've made sure that I've kind of mixed. It's really, this is a very pasty material, so I've made sure that I've really mixed that pasty material with the buffer and made myself a sort of suspension of those two things. But I really wanted to make sure that I got all of the buffer and all of the solid parts together. In fact, I do actually have the original sample here now, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I really wanted to make sure that I got everything, because if I leave anything behind, it's going to end up giving me an error, because essentially what we do is we back calculate what the Scoville heat unit is of the original sample. So it's really important that everything, the original sample and all the buffer, all makes its way into these vials. So I've made sure that that I was trying to get 0.1 grams of the puree, and I was trying to get 0.9 mils of the buffer. I've put them together. You can see that in the image that these are not necessarily highly transparent or clear samples. That's a nice thing about FoodSense Generation 4 and about electrochemistry in general. Things don't have to be super transparent like you would, and super clean like you would in maybe other analytical systems. Once I've done that, I actually used a vortex, and I think this is quite important because we really want to extract as much of the capsaicin out of those samples as quickly as possible. So I'll just vortex this now. I mean, this is shaking this at thousands of times per second. There's no way you can just manually shake the way the vortex is actually shaking that. So that's an important, let's say, step. And I didn't centrifuge it. It wasn't necessary to centrifuge it. Sometimes I may suggest that actually you do centrifuge things, but I just want to say vortex and centrifuges don't come with the kit, but actually they are quite readily available on Amazon these days. And I'm certainly no advert for Amazon. It's just a statement of fact. So as I say, we got it. First of all, this is a puree, but I would say that if you were going to test whole chilies, really grind them up so they are like a puree. In this case, I was thinking it was fairly mild, so I wanted to do what was called a 1 in 10 dilution. So I took 0.1 grams of the puree and added 0.9 mils of the buffer. I mixed those two things together, and then I put that in a vial and I vortexed it. And I vortexed it for about 30 to 60 seconds. That's probably really important because I really want to get that capsaicin out of the solid and into the liquid phase. At which point now I have essentially my little vial. I will change screens and just chat through it. So what I'll do is I'll take out this chili sensor. That one's been used. Let me just take that out. Just for interest. Sometimes people think that the sort of more red a sample is, maybe the hotter it is, but it's not really the case. I've got some very hot samples, let's say Scoville heat unit samples in this around here, and they're not at all necessarily red. The capsaicin itself is actually quite transparent, so quite white the crystals are. That said, I have my sample. I will get some of that sample out and I will put it onto the sensor. I realize I might want to bring that in slightly here and just put it onto the sensor. I'll do that properly. Okay, good. I put 50 microliters onto that sample. I have my app here, and what I'm going to do is, I know it's not so clear on the screen, but I'm going to just change the name on this. Because what happens is everything goes to the cloud. So even though I get a result on my phone now, the results will actually go to the phone. Now I did what's called a 1 in 10 dilution. So I can see here I got 1 in 10 dilution. I could have chosen 1 in 10, 1 in 100, 1 in 1000, 1 in 10,000, but in fact I've done 1 in 100. And I'm going to start the measurement. So it's essentially at this point doing the analysis. And this takes about 30 seconds. This it's not so important, let's say, but it's actually using an electrochemical technique. If you've got anyone in the family with diabetes and they're using glucose strips, those glucose strips are actually electrochemical sensors, and this is what this is. I didn't really say it, but actually the app is in Bluetooth connection with the meter, and I didn't really make that clear, but it is. It's actually communicating with the meter, and it's got the data back from the device. And it's come back with a score of, and I think that's about 3,000. I think it's 270. I can't quite read it, but it's come back with the score. And if I hit done here, then it's essentially ready to do the next assay. Now I'm really kind of, there's a nice little feature of FoodSense Generation 4, and I'll change my screen to essentially reflect that as well. Let me just do that. What's nice about this technology is actually every time we do it, all the data goes to the cloud. So let me just share that. So here we go. So this was what I labeled up my data. I called it Puree 11. I can see the date and time on this, and I can actually see the raw signal. This is really important because even though I'm not asking people to interpret the raw signal, it is important for traceability that actually you can see the science and be able to get at the science behind these sensors. So I can actually see the score in the cloud, so 3,270, and I can see exactly what the raw signal looks like. And this is important because if you're doing quality control or you're doing it as part of a supply chain, you know, you can demonstrate to people above you in the supply chain or people below you in the supply chain that actually you have full traceability, including the raw signal as well. So it's essentially a really kind of good traceability, if I can, a good traceability tool as well, that, you know, we can genuinely tell people, you know, what is going on. So if I just do a quick summary then, we took the puree, though if you want to test whole chilies, grind them down or blend them down to a paste, and then you can test them the way I did it. This was a mild sample, so I only weighed out 0.1 grams, and I only diluted into 0.9 mils of the chili pot buffer. If it was hotter, I might have done a 1 in 100 dilution or 1 in 1000 dilution. If I wasn't sure, by the way, the app would have corrected me, and also the raw signal is also tells us what to do as well. Having done my sort of blending of 0.1 grams with 0.9 milliliters, then I vortexed it for 30 to 60 seconds, and then I put 50 microliters on the sensor, and then as you saw, I was able to just run that test in about 30 seconds. So and as I say, it was 50 microliters that I put on there. So I just want to say thank you. If you've got any questions regarding FoodSense Generation 4, I'll put the contact us link underneath this video. And as I say, reach out to us if you've got any questions. Okay, thanks very much.